So should we talk a little bit about the stupid that's coming out of medical academia and other academia?
That sounds like fun.
Yeah, it's always fun. Okay, Zach, put this up if you would, sweetie. Australian doctors push renaming Adam's apple the Achilles tendon and other misogynistic terms. This is for real. This is not in The Onion or whatever Australia's version of The Onion is. I can't remember at the moment. I mean, these things really speak for themselves, but... So remember Achilles, oh my God. So there are a lot of body parts that are named for the people who were the first people in Western science to discover them. And of course, until very recently, that was mostly limited to, landed white men. And okay, fine. What are we doing? And the Adam's apple and the Achilles tendon, these aren't even real people, guys. Like, this is mythology.
Right.
This is mythology. And Achilles was a great warrior. I don't know, maybe he was real, but for God's sake.
And the Adam's apple is an ugly lump. And the Achilles tendon
it's only men who've got it. Like, this is a complaint now.
Oh,
we're going to rename one of the parts that's actually only in men. So I don't even have much more on that. It's just so absurd.
Well, no, here's the what's more. I mean, it's funny, but it's so unfunny because the answer is people are not extrapolating, right?
Yeah.
This is the level of thinking of the people who tell you they know what we're supposed to do next.
Yeah,
right.
This is true.
Is the level of thinking, right?
And the kind of language they use is often decolonize our language. And in fact, the next example is that too. Grammar. Oh boy. Rutgers English department to de-emphasize traditional grammar, quote, in solidarity with Black Lives Matter. Yeah, please. I just read the headline of what you guys can now see. The chair of the Rutgers English department sent out an email announcing plans to decolonize again English by in part focusing less on grammar. Quote, this approach from the Department of English at Rutgers email to her people. This approach challenges the familiar dogma that writing instruction should limit emphasis on grammar and sentence level issues so as to not put students from multilingual, non-standard academic English backgrounds at a disadvantage. So we can steelman this briefly and say, I have actually taught with faculty who were really good at grammar level correction and weren't really able to see the bigger, why do we write in the first place? We don't write to have perfect grammar. We write in order to say something, right? So a focus entirely on grammar is misguided and will kill the spirit and creativity of the best students and, actually all students, I think. And so should writing instruction be focused also on content and big ideas and not exclusively on copy editing, but also on editing and actual content? Of course it should. And too many writing teachers don't do that. I don't know if it's because they can't or because they're lazy or because they honestly think that grammar is the end all and be all. But the idea that that everyone shall not be held to the standards of grammar, including, this isn't just for undergraduate papers, they're suggesting this for dissertations, for PhD level dissertations. This is the soft bigotry of low expectations. That is exactly what this is. Trying to help people by assuring them that they won't be held to standards, that's not helping them. That's not helping them in any way.
It's beyond the soft bigotry of low expectations.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, because it's actually a direct insult. Because the obviously correct thing is that these things are readily learnable, and we've done a terrible job of democratizing the tools to do it. And the right thing to do is to democratize those tools. To pretend that there is something within certain populations that puts correct grammar out of reach is an insane insult.
I mean, it's Robin DiAngelo all over again. Like, this department chair is either so confused and scared by the inaccurately named Black Lives Matter movement, or is actually personally a racist and really believes that people from backgrounds that aren't like hers can't do very well. It's one of those two things, I think. Like, what are the other possibilities on the table?
This is it. But the other thing, which I never see anybody say, is, all right, or actually I occasionally see people say this now, if you institute these standards, you are so hobbling us nationally that you are guaranteeing we lose our position going forward, right? If our PhDs cannot speak with precision because nobody has required it of them, then they will not speak with precision. What will happen to the quality of discourse if people who are responsible for discourse do not do it with precision? Well, then our thinking will degrade, right? What happens in a school of engineering when you decide that logic and math are white supremacist? Well, you stop doing logic and math well. What happens? Sooner or later, the bridges start falling down. How long do you imagine we can impose this nonsense on all of the systems that actually do make things work and not have them come apart?
And it's totally consistent with the idea that hierarchy is itself racist or sexist or whatever ist you want to choose, right? If the idea of hierarchy is itself a problem, then you can't have better and worse. You can't actually have assessment of quality because quality itself, if hierarchy doesn't exist, then quality doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Right? There is no ranking possible on any level, which is a conflation of, equal under the law with every single individual is identically capable of all things, which no one in their right mind would claim.
Yeah.
Every single individual is not equal and equally capable of all things, even if we manage to completely equalize all opportunity from moment one. We vary. That is the result of evolution.
So one way to think about this is the level of insanity of the claims that are now regularly surfacing. The level of insanity is a direct measure of the strength of the underlying game theory of this movement. In other words, the feebleness of the argument floats on the fact that it is very difficult to oppose it without paying a price, right? And it is that thing. So it's this move where the idea is, here is a thing, and you have to say it. And if you resist, then you are the thing that is being alleged. So if you say, for example, that, logic is not a white trait, then you are engaged in anti-black racism. So the point is, people then say that it is a white trait, doing all kinds of harm in the process. But they do that, and what happens is they get an immediate. It's addiction. Right? It's this thing. How do you get addicted to your phone? Somebody has figured out how to trigger these little releases of dopamine that get you coming back for more. So if you feel a threat and then somebody is capable of removing that threat, you may figure out how to do the thing that keeps getting the threat to back off. And what are you doing? You're becoming an accomplice to the movement. That's how you're getting the threat to back off.
But of course, it's utterly free to make a threat.
It's in this context, it is free to make a threat. It is free to attack a federal building. There's all kinds of things that have become free. And so what I think we're watching day in and day out at all sorts of levels is people serving their own immediate interests, motivated by fear, and emboldening the movement that is creating the fear. It's the child who sends the adults into the cornfield, and the thing is, eventually you have to confront the child, because there's no solution that comes from everybody saying what the child wants you to say, and that's what we're looking at. Yeah,
no, it feels ever more juvenile, but these aren't reasonable children. This is a topic for many, many, many other conversations, as we have had, as we have raised our own children and written about childhood and what childhood is and how it is that you make strong and resilient and awesome and humor-filled and loving children into adults. You do not cater to their every whim, and you do not run scared when they throw a tantrum. You don't cave to tantrums, ever. And if what you do is you say, don't do that or I'll X, and then they keep doing it and you don't do X, they do it more. Of course they do. That is basic human psychology. Of course they do more of it. And that is exactly what we're seeing on our streets. It's exactly what we're seeing in boardrooms, what we're seeing in colleges. It's what we're seeing every place. This is really badly raised children in the bodies of adults acting like maybe they were taught to act by their parents who didn't know how to parent and never said no.
And, imagine that that's all taking place on a ship, and what they're doing is they're getting us to allow them to take apart the ship on which we all depend, including them.